Hey guys, you join me on a wet and windy Tuesday morning, but the weather doesn't concern me, and that's because I'm in the back of a brand new Rolls-Royce Ghost Series 2. Now, I'm not going to review the car, not today at least. Instead, I'm going to take you somewhere very special, the home of Rolls-Royce motorcars in Goodwood, West Sussex. So now we are in the inner sanctum of Rolls-Royce, and the first thing to do is to get kitted out in the correct attire. This is James, the head tour guide.
Welcome to the home of Rolls-Royce.
Thank you. He deals with Saudi princes, supermodels, and today he's got me. Now everyone has to wear one of these fetching jackets here. That's partly to stop visitors brushing up against the cars and scratching them as they move past, but also to identify me in the event of an emergency so that they escort me out first. This is where the magic happens. This building is split into multiple sections. The assembly line, the wood shop, the leather shop. But in order to get to the heart of the matter, we need to get to the place where it all begins, in the surface finishing center. Every Rolls-Royce actually begins its life in Germany as a skeleton or body in white. That framework is then sent to the UK, at which point the British work their magic putting the car together. Once the space frame arrives from Bavaria, it's then up to the boys and girls in the UK to get the painting process started properly. The first step is to clean the car and then apply a primer base coat to the underneath. Interestingly, the people that work here aren't allowed to wear makeup, lipstick, or even deodorant in case it contaminates the paint, which is why Rolls-Royce provides a special authorized deodorant so people don't walk around stinking. In total, every Rolls-Royce car gets 5 layers of paint. The primer and the colours are applied to the car's most difficult to reach areas, like the door shuts, by highly trained paint specialists. Once that's done, it's over to the robots. In the paint shop is the only place Rolls-Royce uses robots, and that's to make sure the paint is applied perfectly uniform across the entire body. Robots are used not to cut corners or to save time, but to ensure consistency. The robots apply precisely 3.3 ounces of primer paint per minute for a completely uniform finish. As for colour choice, well, the sky's the limit. Rolls-Royce used to offer around 45 colours, now they offer around 45,000. And if you don't see a pre-prescribed colour of your choice, then you can have an object colour matched to exactly what you want. So in this example, a young lady happened to bring in some pink lipstick that she wanted the car to be painted in. Some other examples, a woman brought in her red setter dog because she wanted the car to be exactly the same colour as her pet. You want to go even crazier? Well, one gentleman wanted his car finished in gold, and to make the paint authentic, Rolls-Royce installed £23,000 worth of gold flecks in the paintwork for that extra bling factor. With the paint fully applied, surface finishers then begin polishing the car and polishing to form a perfectly flat finish. They do this for up to 5 hours in a very painstaking process, after which an inspector scrutinizes every car, making sure there are no imperfections. Once the paintwork is perfect, it then moves onto the assembly line floor. There are multiple stages here, so as it comes through the door, the first step is for each station attendant to look at a screen and decide what components he needs to install. Once he or she has their list of components, they then visit what's called the supermarket. They grab a bunch of parts, head back to the car, and then install them. At the first station, technicians install all the sound deadening materials to minimize both high and low frequency sound, helping every Rolls-Royce stay whisper quiet on the move. Technicians at Station 2 fit over 1 mile of cabling throughout the chassis, as well as a speaker system before the car moves to the next stations to have its convertible roof fitted, if specified, and the huge one-piece magnesium dashboard and instrument panel. Now at this station is where one of the most important processes happens. It's called the marriage. That yellow machine is worth about £1.5 million and it's worth every penny. It's so precise. It slides along these silver rails here and it comes over to this station and picks up the front axle, rear axle, and the engine and transmission. And then the guys working at the station can tighten up the nuts and bolts using a special torque wrench. They can pick up a torque wrench from Halfords for about a £5, but this thing costs £8,000 because it can transmit the exact torque to a computer via Bluetooth to tell the computer who tightened the nut, how tight it was, on what day and at what time. And once it's all done, it slides back across on that machine underneath the car and is mated together with Rolls-Royce precision. We've just come to my favorite part of the Rolls-Royce factory, where they build the Starlight headliner roof. Now this is incredibly complex. Somebody has to manually drill 1,340 holes into the Starlight headliner. Then someone else has to manually install 1,340 fiber optic lines into the holes. Somebody else then has to measure the length of each of those fiber optic cables, because the longer the cable, the dimmer the light, and different stars have different brightnesses. Then someone else has to cut the length of those cables before somebody else glues and finishes the headliner. Incredibly complex, but worth every moment of hassle. So right now we are in the leather shop. Everybody knows Rolls-Royces are covered head to toe in leather, and trust me, it's high quality stuff. The bulls they use are actually high altitude animals, so there are no mosquitoes to bite them and puncture the skin. Rolls-Royce wanted the highest caliber of leather, so they approached Fendi, the high fashion handbag maker, and said, "Where do you get your leather from?" Fendi said, "Don't even worry about it, we'll supply the leather tanning for you." So the same leather you get in a Fendi handbag is the same as you get in a Rolls-Royce car. It will take the leather shop staff 17 days to complete a fully upholstered interior, and a typical Phantom requires 90 square feet or 18 half hides of leather. That's more than 8 cows per car. Each part of the upholstery starts out as a solid piece of tanned leather. Inspectors check each one meticulously, looking for blemishes. Bite marks, scars, scabs are all identified and marked with a wax pencil. Technicians then have to cut 450 individual leather pieces from the hides using a laser. This technician selects a shape from a screen and beams the pattern onto the hide, avoiding the imperfections marked in pencil. Next, technicians lay out the hide onto a cutting table, and a laser-guided blade trims it at 60,000 incisions per minute. Once the pieces are cut, sewing machinists begin the job of sewing the panels together, paying particular attention to the stitch lines, which have to be as close to perfect as possible. The pieces are then glued to an underlying layer of foam to add softness. One of the best jobs in the factory, I think, has to be the guy in the seat testing area. His job is to program the electric seats to make sure that they do the right things when you press all the different buttons. But in addition, part of his job is to sit in the seats. He has to sit in up to 18 seats a day to make sure they do just the right thing. Imagine getting paid to sit on your bum for most of the day. Amazing. When a Rolls-Royce finishes its time on the assembly line, it must go through 3 very serious tests to make sure it's ready for the outside world. Test number 1 is the shaker test. That is an ultra quiet room. If you step inside it, you can hear a pin drop. It's very, very quiet. Those 4 pistons on the floor vibrate the car suspension up and down, so the people inside, one inside the car and one outside the car, can hear if there are any rattles or squeaks. Test number 2 is the rolling road. Behind that door, the car is being driven on a rolling road and taken up to 100 miles an hour to figure out whether the engine and the transmission are up to scratch. The final test is the Monsoon Test, where the car is drowned in 5,000 litres of water from 73 high-pressure jets in order to ensure it's totally watertight. Rolls-Royces simply do not leak. Once pummeled, tested at speed and drowned, a Rolls-Royce gets rewarded with yet more polishing for hours and hours and hours, and then polished some more. Each car is then taken by the person with surely the best job in the factory for a spin in the real world to ensure absolutely everything works correctly. That it feels
like a Rolls-Royce. So after 11 days, 450 hours, 11 stations, 8 cows, and an unfathomable quantity of handcrafted love, care and affection, an owner can take delivery of his or her car. This is a mesmerizing process. This is a world away from the robotic, machine-constructed methods employed by rival manufacturers. This is how a Rolls-Royce is born.
This is the Rolls-Royce Wraith. It's a car you'll want to dress up nice for, and yet you'll only ever drive it with bare feet. It's a car that can leave an Aston Martin for dead, and yet you'll only ever drive